You're watching Philadelphia Eagles now. My name is Chase Senior. Coming up here on the show, my Week 3 keys to the game. What the Eagles need to do to beat the Rams at Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday in the game of the week across the entire league, and some of the matchups and storylines that we have to monitor. Key to the game number 1. This has been a huge problem for the Eagles in the first 2 games of the year. I think a lot of people are overly panicking right now, and they don't remember that last year to start the year, the Eagles were very mid offensively and defensively. They even had their struggles. But on the offensive side of the football, they really didn't find their groove until Week 7 or Week 8. But to start 2025, an issue, generating explosive plays. These are plays of 10-plus yards, and the Eagles haven't been able to manufacture a lot of them, which is somewhat puzzling with all of the talent on the offensive side of the ball. Howie Roseman has built this team in a way where they are so deep, they have so much premier talent, so much depth, and under Nick Sirianni, early in the year, they usually take their time in trying to find their identity. I think that's what you're seeing right now, but obviously a lot of Eagles fans with Kevin Patullo, internal promotion to offensive coordinator, taking over for Kellen Moore, have Brian Johnson PTSD from 2023. Offense struggled then. He was an internal promotion, taking over for Shane Steichen. And so going into this game, and really all year long, all eyes are on Kevin Patullo, and the pressure is on. Now, you got to give him some slack, right? He is 8 quarters into his NFL career calling plays. He's never called plays previously to the 2025 season. And so you got to give him some breathing room here, but there have been issues on the offensive side of the football. Lack of explosive plays. The pass game has really been lacking, and that's obviously backed up by the lack of throwing production for Jalen Hurts, even though analytically he's been very efficient and awesome on third downs. The offense for the Eagles has been very vanilla, and as part of that, the play calls have been predictable. These are play calls that are predictable, but also the defense is able to read and predict what the Eagles are going to do because the play designs and the scheme has become somewhat predictable. Again, another 2023 problem. But this time last year, it was also an issue. And speaking to the Eagles' lack of explosive plays here, they only have 3 pass plays in 2 games of 10-plus yards. Against Kansas City, Hurts only completed 1 of 4 passes that traveled 10-plus yards against the Chiefs. And so he's really not throwing the ball downfield either. And for context, in 2022, this is part of the reason why the standard is so high from fans with this Eagles team. Philadelphia led the NFL with 169 explosives. They averaged 9.9 explosive plays per game. And last year with Saquon Barkley, they also generated a lot of explosive plays. And to a certain degree, he's been a little bit bottled up. And so you take a look at these Eagles offensive numbers here, they are very, very average. But in a couple of key areas, third down and in the red zone, they have flourished. They have the 3rd best third down percentage in the NFL at 48.1%. And when they get inside the 20, every time they've gotten inside the red zone so far this year, they have scored a touchdown. 100% red zone conversion rate. That's huge. And then obviously when they don't get inside the red zone, Jake Elliott has been money to start the season. But with all of the aforementioned talent on this Eagles ball club, you got to be better than 16th in points per game at 22 per. Better than 29th in the NFL in yards per game at 259. And then yards per play, 4.3. Defensively, Eagles really been able to carry the load for this Eagles team to a certain degree, especially with how they played in the second half, giving up just 7 points after recess in the first 2 games of the year. Another problem with this Eagles passing game is the average depth of target for Jalen Hurts thus far. And this obviously has to do with the lack of explosive plays, but it's also part of a bigger and greater problem, right? Hurts and Kevin Patullo really just aren't throwing the ball downfield. And Jalen Hurts has an average depth of target so far of only 6 yards. And through his first 2 games, that's the lowest of his career in that span as a full-time starter. In 2021, 7.9. In 2022, 6.9. In 2023, 9.6. In 2024, 6.8. And this year, by far a low at 6 even. And this has been a reoccurring theme for the Eagles to start the year. And obviously, it's a problematic takeaway and trend where Hurts has plenty of protection, but this Eagles offense right now is very easy to defend. I mean, everybody here downfield is covered. There is nothing there for Jalen Hurts. And so working off of point number 1 there for my keys to the game, we segue to key to the game number 2. The Eagles have to get A.J. Brown going. And I think that he's been a champion so far. He's not complaining. We don't see sideline spats. Obviously, with wide receivers, they can be very demonstrative and get frustrated easily with a lack of targets and production. AJ has said, look, first 2 games of the year, I haven't put up big numbers, but we've won. And it's all about making sacrifices throughout the course of an NFL season. But A.J. Brown is a top 3 wideout in the game. He is so special with his size, speed, hands, route running, being able to pick up yards after the catch, the explosive nature that he brings this Eagles offense downfield. At 6'1", 226, he's such a unique playmaker, a modern-day Julio Jones or Terrell Owens in that body type. But through 2 games, 6 catches, 35 yards, first game of the year, 1 target. It came late in the game for only 8 yards. It is so important to get A.J. Brown going because good things happen when A.J. Brown gets the ball and when the Eagles throw it his way. And the issue with A.J. so far, it's not him. I think he's healthy. I don't think he's hurting with that hamstring, which kept him out 3 weeks during training camp. His routes are way too predictable, and it's always the same thing. He goes in motion, and he's at the same part of the field, and he's running that slant. He's running an out route, and for DBs and defenses, they know what's coming. And the average depth of A.J. Brown's targets through 2 games is 7.4 yards. So a lot of his routes are short, especially the in-breakers. And the average depth in his previous 6 seasons, 11.9. And so A.J. Brown is averaging 0.8 yards after the catch on his 6 catches this year. He averages 5.6 yards after the catch in his entire career. And what's confounding about this also is that the connection of Hurts to AJ has been so dominant since the Eagles traded for him in 2022. It's been one of the best quarterback wide receiver duos in the NFL, and that's a reason why A.J. Brown has been an All-Pro every year that he's been in an Eagles uniform. But also, Jalen Hurts throws the deep ball so well. He has one of the best deep balls in the NFL, but Hurts has only attempted 3 passes of 20-plus yards to start the year, good for 6.2 air yards per attempt, which is 31st in the NFL. And this is a Rams secondary that is shorthanded. Ahkello Witherspoon, cornerback, got placed on injured reserve due to a broken clavicle. And so if the Eagles' offensive line protection can hold up, if they can get that ground game going, I want to see the Eagles take some shots downfield. In week 2 against Kansas City, some of the protections broke down because Grant Calcaterra can't really block. And the Eagles had an opportunity, first play of the game, to take a shot downfield to AJ, which could have gone for a 70-yard touchdown. Obviously, so many nuances, any given play. But the point here is, in week 2 against the Rams, the Eagles have to get A.J. Brown going because when he is clicking, this Eagles offense is unstoppable. Key to the game number 3. I'm telling you this right now. The Rams have Saquon Barkley PTSD, and the Rams are going to center in on Saquon. They do not want to let Barkley beat them like he did in both matchups in 2024 when he ran crazy. Back to week 12. Eagles won that game. Sunday Night Football, 37-20 at SoFi Stadium. Saquon, 255 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Both of those scores, speaking of explosive plays, went for 70-plus yards. He averaged in week 12 9.8 yards per carry. He also set a franchise record for the most rushing yards in a single game. He became the 12th player ever to have 300-plus yards in a game. And he was the first player since Maurice Jones-Drew in 2009 to have 2 touchdowns of 70-plus yards. Was that it? No. Did I mention that the Rams know what Saquon Barkley can do against them? In the divisional round, Eagles won 28-22. Saquon, star-studded performance again. 26 totes, 205, 6.4 yards per carry, and his 2 touchdowns from 78 and 62 yards. The Rams, they do not want to let Saquon Barkley burn them again. And this Rams defense, by season's end, going to be one of the best defensive units in the NFL. The latter half of 2024, they started to become that. This is a Rams defense that I think is only getting started because of all of the great talent on that side of the ball, led by Jared Verse. Through 2 games so far this year, they're only surrendering 14 points per game. Number 1 scoring defense in the NFL. They're 4th in yards allowed per game, 3rd in yards per play, good on 3rd down, and the 2nd best red zone defense in the league too. Key to the game number 4. I'm telling you right now as well, Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay have watched the tape for the Eagles in week 1 against Dallas when CeeDee Lamb popped off, and week 2 against Kansas City when, once again, the Eagles had more secondary and coverage breakdowns. And in those 2 games, through those 8 quarters, Matthew Stafford, one of the top quarterbacks in the league, Sean McVay, probably the 2nd best coach in the NFL behind Andy Reid, they have noticed that Adoree Jackson is the weak spot in this Eagles secondary, and they will attack him. Whether it be with Puka Nacua, whether it be with Davante Adams, they're going to look at number 8, and they're going to throw the ball his way. Stafford so far, this back could flare up at any point, but in the first 2 games, he has stayed healthy. He's completed 71% of his passes, 543 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. And he has one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL to throw to. Puka Nacua putting up good production once again, 18 catches in 2 games for 221 yards. And so that's 9 catches per game and more than 100 yards per game on average. Hasn't found the end zone yet, along of 25. Davante Adams, elder statesman, but a future Hall of Famer, really good route runner, so clean getting in and out of his breaks, and gives the Rams really good size at the wide receiver spot too. He can burn you in so many ways with his route tree, and the timing throws from Stafford to Nacua and Adams, very difficult to stop, especially with those back shoulders, and sometimes you'll see Stafford with the no-look toss. For Adams so far, 10 catches, $157, 1 touchdown, and a long of 33. And Adoree Jackson, how has he fared in 2025? One of the worst corners to start the year. Pro Football Focus overall grade, 41.2. 127th among 140 corners. His coverage grade, 40.6. That ranks 121st. His passer rating allowed, 102.4. He's also giving up 16.1 yards per catch. And so, on average, a lot of plays downfield where Adoree has been a liability in coverage. To his credit, has 2 pass breakups. That does rank 6th among all corners, and that comes on 59 coverage snaps. He's also been banged up, having to leave the game in each of the first 2 games. Key to the game number 5. The turnover battle in this game is going to be huge. These are 2 contenders in the NFC. These are 2 Super Bowl contenders. And when you go up against an elite team that has a great roster and is very well coached, there isn't a margin for error. And in speaking of the Eagles' offensive struggles, let's get to this point here. You want to know why Nick Sirianni and Kevin Patullo, in addition to Jalen Hurts, because he's a part of the game planning as well, get conservative on offense, and why so far to start this year, you haven't seen a lot of deep shots. You haven't seen a lot of explosive plays in the pass game. Philadelphia really wants to limit turnovers. And to Nick Sirianni's credit, there's reasoning behind that. In the NFL, when you win the turnover battle, you win about 80% of your games. And for Philadelphia, it's even better. Under Nick Sirianni since 2021, the Eagles are 36-2 when they win the turnover margin. They are 8-7 when the turnover margin is even, and they are 12-14 when they lose a turnover margin. Even that mark is pretty good. But that's part of the reason why this Eagles offense at times can be vanilla. They understand that in the trenches, they can wear you down. And they understand that with the makeup of their team and with the talent of their team and the identity of it, they're like a boa constrictor. And so as long as they can keep the game close, as the game progresses throughout the course of 60 minutes, they will slowly suffocate you. And with the clutch gene of this Eagles team, led by Jalen Hurts, they make the big plays late. But why this is so important is because this is a matchup between 2 elite teams. And you have to win on the fringes and the margins in games like this. And one turnover can really cost you the ball game. And you're getting a Rams team that is coming into the link very motivated because in their last 11 games, dating back to last year, they are 9-0 against all other teams outside of the Eagles, but 0-2 against Philadelphia. They want to finally take down the Birds. Predict the score for me. Rams, Eagles, stage is set at the link here in week 3. And I think this is going to be a difficult game. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be another low-scoring game. But the Eagles have owned Los Angeles. They're at home. They're a better team. This game is also taking place 10 a.m. in the morning Pacific time. And so the Eagles have a little bit of an edge there as well on top of the travel. And so I think the Eagles offense shows some signs of life. They go back and forth, exchanging some blows and punches with Los Angeles like they did with Kansas City. And like the game against the Chiefs, they end up pulling out late and being able to win this game late, 24-21, my final score.